we ask a lot of questions. Personally, I don't care for the pre-date idea. Is everybody familiar with the fair tax and how it operates now? Basically, it would add the current rate 6%, and it would across the board add it to goods and services. So time, positions, and everyone else would be taxed as well. New goods. Yeah. So yeah, it's key. Nothing used. So if you bought a used car, there wouldn't be a tax on it. Long story short is that 6% would then take off the income tax. But there's a thing called rebate. It's the opposite of rebate. They would give you at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the month a certain amount of money that they calculate if you have 4 children, 2 children, that kind of thing. It's on a schedule that would allow you basically, let's just say $200. I think mine was 4, I get $200 because that's what I would spend on necessity. What they quantify as necessity spending. I'm assuming that's that's clothing, food, those things. To me, that's just more extension of welfare. If we're going to get this break, everybody gets it across the board. It can be that I have more children or larger family or income base or anything there. So I see the two fights coming, and one is going to be that rebate, that amount to whom and how much, and that's going to be continuous over time. Well, we need to wrap that up a little bit, things are bad, things are good, whatever. The other is what is in the, what we call it, and I debated this a little bit, the exemption. There are exemptions on this, used goods is one of them, and some other things, education and things like that. In the debate, somebody asked the question about child care. They own a couple of child care centers, and they believe that that should be exempted from this tax because it's a necessity. They claim that there's education going on in the child care centers, and that may be the case. I'm not going to debate that, but I said I don't believe that's the case. Child care is not a sanctioned school activity, so it shouldn't be considered. You're going to get into that fight. Should energy commodities, should other things. So once those things happen, I think that is going to be one of the bigger fights this year, if you will. It will either be a large fight or you won't hear anything about it again. The study committee will make recommendations. I'm hopeful they'll be bold and broad. We need low, simple taxes. It just shouldn't be that difficult. They're arguing that our state tax code is extremely complex. I think it's complex based on the complexity of your investment and your activity, if you will. But compared to the federal tax code, my goodness, every year I sort of, after I finish the federal, I go, oh, this is only 4 pages. And most of it's my name and social security number. It should be, but but we need to really, I think, address that strongly. The other thing that I'm very hopeful we get into, and this is a more difficult thing, people shy away from it because everything becomes a fight, a regulatory reform. It's never addressed. It's always stated, but we've all worked under the DHEC laws, under the EPA laws, you name it, labor, everything else. And I'm not saying they're all bad, but I think they all ought to come under scrutiny or review every so often. I'm not committing to a certain time frame, but I'd like to introduce a bill that says that all regulations have to be reviewed and reapproved in a certain period of time, 5 years, 7 years, something of that nature. Simply because we have regulations that the state owns, so they're no longer useful, but people still have to comply. They're used as a hammer, they're not used as an incentive or safety anymore. So I believe that we ought to do some serious regulatory reform. And if we can't get into each regulation because it's just too hard or we have too many on one book, then let's just sweep the books off and say every 5 years they sunset, and if they're still necessary, that agency or that group will come back and defend it. So those are sort of the topics that we did an awful lot of other things. And I'm only highlighting some of the ones that I thought were important towards pro-life reforms that the protection measures did. So,
what were those protection measures?
Well, one of them was that the ACA, Obamacare, that states could opt out of, that it would force paid for abortion. And the states, they allow the states to opt out, if you will, and South Carolina is one of those states that opted out of unforced payment of that. I'm trying to think sort of what else we passed that might be interesting. Any questions? I mean, really. what's on your mind? What do you think is important coming up?
The school vouchers?
Yes.
What's been done there or anything?
Great question. I'm on the education committee, and I really thought the education committee would be more involved in education. It's the policy that's setting body. It's not the expenditure setting body. Obviously, Ways and Means does that, and I knew that, but you still think that it would have. What they do is they say, let's go do this, but if Ways and Means doesn't fund it, they can cut your knees out from under you. We passed two, I think, we passed one significant bill and the other one failed. Vouchers is the school choice bill. I thought it was very well done. At the time, I had one boy in private school and my daughter was in public school. And the way they set it up, and I had said to be honest, I would not take advantage of it because I wouldn't give myself a raise. I wouldn't vote for myself a raise, but I would be voting for the bill. But they basically said, my son Jim, use him as an example, he goes to Heritage Christian Academy. I would not be able to participate in the voucher program for at least a year. The program itself was designed to create savings in the system. If there was savings at the end of that year, then the next year, out of those savings, you could apply and go forward. So I've already made the choice and the sacrifice to send him to private school. Well, we had done it with Carol and my daughter as well, but she chose public school after that. But I think that's the appropriate way to go. It allows the argument, it diminishes the argument that says only the rich are sending their kids to school. The other was school choice, that in the school it was just pure choice. That failed by one vote. Procedurally, that seems like it could easily be overcome. There were two people out of the chamber that were not for school choice, and the people who, quite frankly, are sort of advocating, the lobbyists, if you will, said we don't want to press another vote right now.
School choice, if student goes to school outside their district or wherever, transportation will not be required.
Correct. Again, it took, I think, the only the rich kids, it took that off the table. It took off the table, we shouldn't pay for private schools. And those types of arguments that just arise. I just don't believe that based on your zip code, you should be, tethered, if you will, to a school. Lexington 1 is a school choice district, if you will. As long as you do the transportation, they'll allow you from one school to another upon application, upon there being room, and I've yet to know of anyone who's denied based on room.
But would one of the arguments be that if I don't have transportation for my child in my school is worse than the state, and I don't have a way to get them to my school?
Well, it's a good argument. I'm not saying it's not. It's a worthy one of debate, but that one gets in the way of the real rest of it, and so we can't manage government based on every exception, and I'm not trying to dismiss that. That's unfortunate. But you're going to continue, like the school system now, you're going to continue to let the whole system be dictated by the exception.
Let me ask you, do you have any idea how many students today in South Carolina are in private schools?
I've heard the number, I can't recall it. So no, I can't answer you about it. No.
So the savings, they're not counted in the savings right now. The savings become based on the students who were pulled out or
yes,
the public side.
Correct.
So that would have to be decided all these
the school district formula is potential students for the district. Say you have 1,000 potential students, 100 of them go to private school. They continue to count those for their purposes because they have to be prepared for it. So the buildings have to be prepared. But on an annual basis, they budget. They know that there's an average number. They go to private, so they budget their tuition, things like that. What drives me crazy, a great example is sports. I think, I pay the taxes for my child to go to school. I've chosen to make the sacrifices for them to go to a private school. But my son may want to play soccer or baseball or something in the public sector. Now, to me, those are extracurricular activities. They aren't core activities that the government really should be all that worried about. Now, I'm a big sports fan, so don't take it in any other way than that. But for my son not to be overblamed, but the argument back by the high school league, who's apparently a non-governmental body that controls all this, I don't understand how that works, says that, well, but we predict and we budget our allocation. Helmets and pads cost a lot of money. And so if the parents are willing to double tax themselves yet again and pay for those things, then why are you not letting children do it? And of course, we have Tim Tebow and others that have shown allowing that is actually a healthy thing. But they're locked down and they won't listen to us. It's the same thing. That's just an example of how they do it. The other bill was about the charter school bill. I've been a charter school fan for a long time. Charter schools are public schools. Don't let that get lost when people start out, charter schools are horrible. They're public schools. They are public in that the district has oversight, or the chartering body has oversight. One of the most exciting things I saw all year long, and it just gets into the mission. I hate when politicians do this, so I apologize up front. We had a presentation by the virtual school, state charter virtual school, and it was a live classroom presentation. A science teacher set up the whole thing, computer-based models. You could see a number of the class students on screen. They all had ways to raise their hand. It was very intricate, very neat the way it was done. But during the presentations, the teacher called on 3 students and said, say Jane, Jill, and Bobby. Jane, why are you in the virtual school? Jane had she had broken her leg, shattered, this poor thing. So she couldn't go to school for a semester, would have set her back. And so she got into virtual school. That was 2 years before, and she chose to stay in. Jill was another health problem.